Welcome to Safety Talk. Personal safety expert Pete Canavan shares his insights and interviews experts who provide simple and effective tips, techniques, and technologies to keep you safe and secure both online and off. Here's Pete.
Hello and welcome to Safety Talk. I'm your host and personal safety expert, Pete Canavan. I'm joined by my colleague, branding and social media expert, Neil Haley, who's on the line with me as well today. So how you doing today, Neil?
I'm always doing great. It's great. I can't believe it's July 1st. It's just this whole year has flown by. It's unbelievable. You think it was January and now it's July, and we're in the heat of the summer, and it's finally feeling like summer. And before you know it, we're talking back to school again, which is amazing how quickly the summer flies by.
Don't tell my wife that. She's like just settling in the fact that she just got off of, for summer vacation. So
once she had the 4th, it's pretty much that the countdown begins to go back.
To teachers, well, you were a teacher, they say July is Saturday and August is Sunday.
Yeah, that's true.
Back at it. So, as always, I try to touch on a current news item or two, depending on what's going on in the news today. And, there's never a shortage of safety-related news items. And the one that I came across today actually is one that affects the most number of people that I found. But there's a company that performs collections for a company called LabCorp that does laboratory testing for medical, facilities around. And the collection agency that this company uses, American Medical Collections Agencies, they were the victim of an 8-month-long data breach. And it exposed 7.7 million customers' records and other medical testing companies' customers' records. So the total of potentially compromised people's accounts is around 20 million. So that is a lot of people being affected by the data breach. And, medical companies and companies related to them, like a collection agency for them, are big targets for hackers because medical records always contain financial information and as well as all sorts of personal information and insurance information, et cetera. So there are, in terms of identity theft purposes, they are an absolute gold mine. And so, this is really why you have to keep an eye on your credit, your bank account statements, all your other financial records, and don't just do it once a month or once every, couple of weeks. You really should be diligent about it. You should be looking at this stuff at least every couple of days. Anything ever looks funny, investigate it immediately, because you never know when your information could be potentially compromised through a company or through a third party, and you may not even know about it. Like, for example, this breach occurred, 8 months ago, and we're just finding out about it now. Yeah. Well, that's a really scary thing. So that's the first thing I wanted to just touch on, because again, it's something in the news, and we see it happening all the time with these hacks. And the other involves freak weather. And, we don't really think about the weather as being all that dangerous, maybe a tornado or something like that. But there was a huge hailstorm in a town just north of Mexico City that just happened. I believe it was yesterday or into today. And the people went to sleep. They woke up to 5 feet, up to 5 feet of hail.
Oh my goodness!
In Mexico, could you imagine? So cars were buried, streets were buried, people couldn't get around. And could you imagine being caught in a hailstorm like that?
Goodness. Talk about that damaged cars for sure.
Damaged people, right? You get some hail dropping down on you like that at that rate. That's just some scary, scary stuff. So, as always, be safe. You never know what can affect you, where you're going to be. You could have been on vacation, or whether it's something computer related, but there are all these different things that we have to watch both in the physical world and in the digital world to maintain our safety, our security, our privacy, etc. Now, our guest today is someone with extensive experience in helping improve the safety of others. She's a former campus president and has worked as the vice president of operations for several colleges across the United States over the last 2 decades. Her current role allows her to continue improving safety as a writer and as a security compliance consultant for a company called SafeWise. And SafeWise compiles basically best practices for improving personal safety, and they recommend solutions for living safer at home as well as when you're out traveling around the world. So we talk about improving personal safety on every episode of Safety Talk. And so it's my pleasure to bring on to the show today Rebecca Edwards from SafeWise. Welcome to Safety Talk, Rebecca.
Thank you, Pete. I'm excited to talk with you tonight.
Yes, we're glad we're joining us here today because, improving safety is what we're all about. And it's the safety and security of everyone, both home, abroad. And you were in charge of security in, I guess, various capacities for multiple college campuses in your previous career, and had to deal with a lot of day-to-day safety issues. And, I can relate to that because I'm a former university public safety officer. And the things you see, I mean, just when you thought you'd seen it all, right? You something else comes up and you're like, I don't believe I just saw this. So, and I'm sure you had that same experience with you, right?
Definitely. It's pretty shocking and surprising what can come up and the frequency that things can come up. Sometimes it's just an onslaught, one thing after another.
Yeah, college campuses are a place where, we, as parents, we send our kids off to college. We hope that they're all going to be safe and everything's going to be good. But really, way before that process of even getting the child off to college, whether it's a local school or somewhere across the state or even across the country, even in another country, like if they're studying abroad or something, that safety starts even ahead of time with doing the research and, where are the safer schools and what sort of resources do they have on hand to make sure that our children are safe when they're going to school. And so you contribute to SafeWise to the Safe College Towns report that they publish every year, correct?
That is correct.
So for those that may not know what that is, maybe you could just tell our audience a little bit of exactly what is that Safe College Towns report, and then, why does SafeWise do this for the community?
Sure. So the Safest College Towns report that we publish is not looking at the safety on campus. It's looking at the safety in the entire community where the college lives. And so we start with FBI data for both violent and property crime, and that's sort of how the colleges get ranked. We released the report because we know that it's scary to send your kids off to college. I sent my kids off to college. And so our report is an opportunity for us to provide families some additional data when they are weighing different colleges and the pros and cons. And obviously, it's not the only data that a family should look at when they're gauging the potential safety of a college, but it adds another layer. And last year, we added information about median household income and average rent, just to kind of provide some additional details that can help people figure out, is this a potentially safe place for me to send my kid and an affordable place?
That's a great point, Rebecca, because again, they came up, there was on the news for the University of Pittsburgh that some of their housing's not in the greatest areas in the city of Pittsburgh. And somebody was tried to climb in a girl's window on Saturday at 1:00 in the morning. So then they're talking about it all in the news about the campus and how to stay alert. So that's the decision. You're going to go to the University of Pittsburgh, you're going to Penn State. I'm a Pitt fan, but again, if you're looking at a campus where you want your kids to live on, I think a campus like the Penn State would be a lot safer than Pitt. Or, for example, if you decide to go to Temple, where it's in the middle of the city. So having those resources available so that you can know what the kind of area they're going to go to college is very, very important.
Yeah, I think there's a symbiotic relationship between the surrounding community and the college campus when it comes to, definitely when it comes to safety.
Yeah, undoubtedly, because, even if you're a closed campus, you still have opportunities to go off campus, whether it's to, to go shopping or, just to get out. Maybe you got to, just things that you need that aren't always going to be on campus. So you're going to have to leave from time to time. And, Neil mentioned Temple. Temple's a nice school, well-known college, but it's also in the heart of Philadelphia. So, that may be something that people are, maybe not comfortable with, especially if they're coming from a smaller town to go to a big city like that. And yes, they may feel a little bit insulated, but, knowing the safety record of the surrounding community, the types of crimes that are going on, the impact perhaps of drug traffic or the number of, violent crimes. I mean, these are all things that, as a parent and really as a student, they should want to know these things as well, because it's like, hey, do I really want to go someplace where there have been an average of, say, 3 sexual assaults a week, every week for the last 3 years? Maybe not,
Sure.
So,
and I think when you take the crime statistics from the city and add that to the crime statistics from the college, you get a much broader picture of what's really going on. Because like you said, students are not living in an isolated space. As much as we like to think that they are, they do venture off.
Sure, and that's part of the college experience. Is to grow as a person. It's not just to get an education. It's the whole experience of college, and and some kids are, they're a little bit more sheltered than others when they grow up, and so they're going to be more vulnerable. And so, if there's anything that we can do, you can do, anybody, one of us can do to help keep them safer, I mean, that's our job.
Now, could you see a specific situation where we're looking at just the crime, not the crime on the campus, but I guess what it's the types of incidents like sexual assaults that end up on campuses or certain terrible news? Is that part of your report as well, Rebecca? On even the campus type of crime that's happening, or?
Well, when I write up my little summary for every college town that we select, I do research the statistics for the campuses that are in that city, and I will highlight where they have a good record and where they have a less awesome record, just to bring that to light, because FBI data it's one layer, it's one thing to look at, it's not perfect and infallible data. We're trying to get a gauge here, and so I definitely think that it's important to look at the most recent crime and security statistics for each college, and I also even dive into what their security plans are, what their initiatives are, just to get a whole picture. Because especially if you've got a college where you're seeing trends happen year after year, because when you look up the Clery Act statistics, you can look up to 8 years of data. And when I look at trends, then I want to dig in to their action plan and their report and see what's happening there. Because colleges are required to respond and to take responsibility if they want to keep getting Title IV funds. So I think that it's important to see what the preventative and the responsive actions are, in addition to what the stats are.
Would you say that, is it always necessarily in parallel, the safety of the school and the safety of the city? Does one have, I guess certain schools might have a bigger influence over the overall safety of a city and vice versa, but, is one generally maybe better or worse than the other, or do they tend to sort of be in line with each other in terms of their level of safety?
I think
it is the town and the school.
Sure. I think most of the time they tend to be pretty similar, but I don't think that excludes that one is influencing the other. I mean, depending on the size and the scope and even the prestige of a college, there can be different impacts that spread out to the larger community. Vice versa, Pullman, Washington, I think, is a great example where I think that the college is definitely impacting the crime stats for this tiny little rural Washington town. That there's no reason that it should. It has very high crime rates, and I think that there is a big party school there, and that's what they're known for. I know they're fighting that reputation, but I think that it would be really interesting to really dive in and see the relationship in different cases of towns like that. And I will say that my niece is going to school there right now, and she's in AO. So
that's funny. No, I mean, and you think about, when you talk about that, I think of campuses where there is a campus, and yet outside, I'm not talking big cities, but areas that, it's a pretty poor area. There's a campus called Mount Aloysius. It's like that, where I think that the campus is a very, very, very safe, small campus. But outside that campus is a very, one horse town, but yet isn't the safest town. But you go inside that campus, it's all fine, just based on it's a small college. It's really well guarded, and it's almost like a gated community in a certain way, where in and out there's police and different things, and there's really no way of getting in. There's one where, hey, you know what? Just because there could be, you look at per capita income outside that area in that campus, it's a totally different environment. So that's the other thing about, I'll bring up my education background of going and visiting those schools as parents earlier, having them visit them over and not just look at specifically enough the curriculum or your friends going there, but yet is this a safe place for them to be?
Oh yeah, check out the town. Absolutely. In fact, when I was writing my college safety book, because I wrote a book, The Ultimate Guide to College Safety, that was very eye-opening because some of the things that I found in my research was that people that think they're going to like one of the quote better schools, like an Ivy League type school, they think it's a safer school. And the statistics actually show that in many cases the opposite is true. Now we can speculate as to why that may be. I mean, I have my own personal sort of, feelings as to why some of that may be that way. But it's interesting because, you hear of large schools that are well recognized and you think, oh, this is like the perfect place to send my kid. But yet there may be some things that you don't know about. Maybe the whole story isn't being told in the clear statistics. So, it's important to check out the school. It's important to talk to the students. It's important to talk to the teachers. It's important to go to the, the surrounding area, like you're saying, because that will give you a much better view of the whole area. I know I did that with my dad when we were looking at colleges. The two of us, we road tripped one summer. We hit like 6 colleges all over the place throughout New Jersey and Pennsylvania, and did just that. We went around the towns. We talked to the students. Some of them were like, "Don't come here." And we're like, "Why? Like, it's so hard. We can't take it." I was like, "Oh, okay," but it's interesting because that's the only way you're going to get a full sort of picture. I mean, there's no guarantees. You could go to the safest school statistically, the safest school in every other aspect, but yet there could be something that occurs because just crime can be anywhere, but you have to just be vigilant and you have to be aware and you have to not be so naive to think that something's not going to happen to you. And I think that's really the most important point to sort of drive home to everybody is that just because you're going to a quote safe school or you live in a quote safe neighborhood or community that you're not going to be potentially the victim of a violent crime because you don't know who's passing through. You don't know who the guests are that are maybe coming into that dorm, right? You might know everybody on your floor, but you don't know the kid down the hall's friend from school that's visiting this weekend with his 2 other friends. You don't know who they are. So, those are the kinds of things that you got to try to, really stay on top of, I think. Have you seen in the work that you've done, both working at colleges and then now with SafeWise, that there has become more or less or maybe the same amount of cooperation and coordination between the campuses and the cities or the police departments within that area? Have you seen more of that happening now?
I do think there is more of that happening, and there's more of it that is formalized where, local police and law enforcement agencies might sign like agreements with campus police. And not only does that help define what those relationships are and whose responsibility, but it also kind of creates a commitment of how they're going to serve each other and how everybody is working together to protect all the people. But I think, I have read instances when I first started writing about the safest college towns and studying safest college campuses, actually, I did a long series like that a few years ago, that there have been conflicts. And, it's not like SVU, Law and Order, where you watch and they're always fighting Hudson University and the campus is always in a cover-up. I think it's just more practical things. Like it's like when mom thinks that dad is watching the kids and dad thinks the mom is watching the kids. And so there's a little bit of just unintentional absence that happens, so I think that I have seen a lot more cooperation, and I think a lot of it has to do with a lot of the big scary things that have happened, like mass shootings and, terrorist events and things like that, puts everybody on guard and more willing to look at broader solutions instead of fighting over territory.
Yeah, at the end of the day, that's what everybody's job is to make sure that everybody stays safe. And the way you do that, in large part, is communicating with each other, letting each other know what's happening. What I've also been hearing from people that I know in the local community here with regard to the how local law enforcement, as well as the college law enforcement are working together. Some of these college campuses now, the security departments are becoming full-fledged police departments. And
Mhm.
so there's now becoming a little bit of a, I don't know, maybe not like a turf war, but almost like a territorial sort of, bickering going back and forth between, well, it's like, well, this is happening on campus, yes, but this is in your town. So it's like people are like, well, who's going to help who, and whose job is it? And I think some of these campuses are going to have a little bit of a surprise when they figure out, hey, we just became a full police force, and now the local police are like, well, we're not here to help you now. You're your own police force. Do what you got to do. You arrest somebody, you got to put them in a jail cell. You've got to detain people. You've got to write the reports now. Don't call us. So I think in some cases it might come back and bite them.
It definitely can. And Virginia is a really good example. Their Campus Police Act it allows for both private and public colleges and universities to maintain a police force in concurrent jurisdiction with surrounding, law enforcement. And so that state is a great example where they always must complete a detailed agreement between the departments before a campus police force can be established. Just kind of so it's like they're laying out their ground rules before they get going. But I think that is the exception. And so, as you say, as this is becoming more and more common, where campus security is requiring, building out a police force and requiring people to graduate from the police academy and pass all the certifications and everything. And so more states might follow Virginia's example.
Really? And that's interesting when I do look at specific schools, and you're right, with their own campus police, or is it safety and security where they're outsourcing the police officer from somewhere else? Mm-hmm. And what do you think's a better way if they're full-time there, right? On campus is the best way than having it where they're working partially at the school, but they're also even at another school too. That can make problems.
Yeah, I think that it can. I mean, I think always you're looking for someone who's, fully dedicated and paying most attention to, the job that you want them to do, and splitting your time, especially, when you're protecting and serving the public, especially on a college campus, when you're going to deal with a lot of petty stuff in addition to the important stuff, which is probably true for all police officers. But I just feel when you have a bunch of college kids together, it's got to be exaggerated, at least in my experience with college kids.
In your experience, what have you seen as some of the biggest safety challenges on college campuses?
Well, I think that it can depend on where your college is located. I dealt with a lot of colleges that were in the middle of cities. And so our biggest issues there were a lot of perimeter security and dealing with local, the soup kitchen was across the street, and the public train, station, the central station for downtown where it's free ride is right in front of my school. And I ran schools that were open from 8 a.m. to 10:30 or 11 p.m. And so you had to have doors open for students till their last, smoke break or whatever, mm-hmm. and then lock it down. But we found people creeping in to, hallways and stairwells in the parking garage and waiting to try to find a warm place to sleep at night. So, obviously it's a sad story. And we had some thefts and some things that happened from people that someone, closed up and left somebody in there. And we had that happen internally as well. But I think across the board, I've dealt with a lot of aggression, bullying type incidents, people, getting, kind of like fights and aggression in that way. I always think that, the probability of sexual assault, alcohol and drug abuse, those are prevalent on any college campus, I think. In recent years, I've seen more incidents of hate crime type motivated stuff, where you're seeing more, we're saying that everything's becoming more inclusive and there are safe spaces, but this inclusivity and the discussion about diversity and everybody, asserting all of their rights so aggressively is creating a lot of conflict. And I think that is new. It's new, but it's old. I guess. I think we took a breather in the 80s.
Yeah, no, I did. I think
Part of
you're
the-
right. It's sort of reasserting itself, and people
Yeah.
now are gaining more confidence to go out and assert these, their rights, however they
But
decide to do it. But at the same time, I think also some of it is getting too much. You know what I mean? Like people they're going off the deep end because they are not willing to listen to the other side of the story. It's like it's my way or the highway. Well, no, there are two sides to every story, and you need to have an open mind because that's otherwise if you're closed minded, you're not listening, you're not learning. That's not helping anybody. So you have to be willing to listen, to learn, and to see where things are going, and not be so closed-minded. And that's where you see things. I mean, I'm not going to get into politics, but it's similar to politics because it's everybody feels like they have to take such a hard stance on things, and that if you don't listen to what they're saying, then you must be crazy, or there can be no other way, instead of trying to find middle ground. And I think that's happening in a lot of different areas in our society today. Not just the political arena, not just in the alternative lifestyle, LGBTQ, whatever you want to call, different areas of this. It's happening in a lot of different areas around the country, and it's toxic, it's dangerous, and I don't know where we can sort of go as a race to get to a point where we can all just get along.
I know.
And it seems like we should be getting closer to that, and yet it seems like we're getting farther away from it, and it blows my mind because it's like I thought we were smarter than this. I thought we were better than this.
We're not going to be in this environment in this time, and I think that we're going to be in the most toxic election 2020.
Oh well, yeah, talking about that, sure.
How we're all doing it. It's going to be really a challenging time as our country. But I guess you're right. Decisions that college students make or anyone makes as rash judgments, they have to really, really think about their action. And Rebecca, you see that all the time, right? They just kind of can fly off the handle. You just never know what can happen, not thinking of consequences anymore.
Definitely. It's the difference between reaction and responding. And so that gut reaction where you just like in the heat of the moment you're going, and a lot of people fizzle out really fast, but the decision that you made can have long lasting results and impact on your life depending on how extreme that reaction was.
So in terms of trends or changes, has anything in the last, I guess 20 years or so that you've been doing this really with regard to colleges, is there anything that's been really shocking and surprising to you? I mean, other than probably maybe technology, because, that's really impacted so much.
Sure. The thing that's interesting is that overall, all crime trends across the country have been on a steady decline for almost the last 3 decades. There have been a few little blips, a couple anomalous years here and there. But we live in a higher state of awareness and fear, I think, because we are bombarded with all the worst things that are happening all the time, which goes back to technology, I guess. I think that has created a different mindset in us. And sadly, I think that it's feeding into that reactionary mindset a little bit more than an empowered preventional type mindset, where with all this information, with all this technology, we actually have the power to be far more prepared, to be aware of our surroundings, to be on the lookout for risk signs, to really protect ourselves and the people around us. If that was the way we were responding to all of the crazy news, instead of, I think, big, strong reactions and a lot of this crazy, stuff that we're seeing, these heightened tensions, a lot of that stems from fear. So I think that we're living in a more fear-based society, and that ups the incidence of everything. I think that mass shootings, that's probably been the most shocking thing. Mm-hmm. It's crazy. And it's so prevalent that we don't even give it very much attention anymore. And
it's almost become like acceptable, and nothing could be further from the truth in terms of it being acceptable. It's completely unacceptable. And that's, like you said, that's got to be the most shocking thing to see, is young men, young women, young people going in and committing absolutely horrible acts of violence and murder. And you think, how on earth could they even have gotten themselves and their mindset to that point where they were able and willing and committed enough to go and do this sort of thing? And, if it was once in a while, okay, that'd be one thing. But when it starts to become all the time, there is something much deeper going on that we have got to figure out what it is. And, technology can help, but it can't do everything. And, I think of a lot, it goes back to, upbringing and, mental health and family and, just a loving environment, and so many things, can affect it. But, technology can do some things, but it can't replace what the root cause of all of these issues is. And, whatever that is, I think it's a combination of things, but it's definitely been a disturbing and surprising and upsetting trend, no doubt.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
Do you think there's a disproportionate amount of focus on things like mass shootings as opposed to other areas that need attention?
I don't want to say that mass shootings don't deserve attention, but I think that when that's the biggest thing that we're talking about, when we're talking about safety on college campuses or high school campuses, wherever that might be, we're missing the boat on things that happen far more often, and they're more systematic trends that they have been, these types of crimes have been happening forever, and we're still not addressing those. So, I think that I had a gentleman reach out to me. He's trying to find a safe place to send his son, just graduated from college. He has a squash scholarship to Cornell. He's got ADHD. He's got impulse control issues. They're like, I want to send him somewhere and have him grow up a little bit. Where could he go that would be safe? You read about all these, school shootings, and they're happening in these places. And that was his first, go-to. This man desperately trying to find good environments for his son. He's like, I don't want to send him to Cornell until I know because they're worried about Cornell being a big party school and him being in danger there, which is one of those, high level schools that we're talking about.
Yep.
And it's in the collective consciousness, as that's the thing we want to protect against when
we should be talking more about things like alcohol abuse.
Absolutely. Yes.
Something that they're going to deal with every week.
Absolutely. Every single college report that I've seen over the years that I've submitted them myself and reported on them, I have never seen a college crime report that did not include a very high number of alcohol incidents and sexual assault or potential sexual assault incidents. Those two exist everywhere. And I don't care if you're a Catholic college, if you're Brigham Young University, those things are there. And you can have a lot of absence of a lot of other issues on your campus, but those tend to exist everywhere.
Why is that? How can't you curb that? How can't you stop that from happening?
Stop alcohol, which is never going to happen.
Yeah, alcohol.
Well, because alcohol, think about it. A lot of times, these sexual assaults, in my experience, alcohol was involved. In every single one of them, alcohol was involved in the sexual assault, either by the victim, by the perpetrator, or both.
Mm-hmm. No, I think incapacitation, if that's a word, is a huge, huge contributor to that in college. Everything's going overboard. Everybody is, and if you don't have a plan in place, if you're not prepared, you just walk into that situation, it's just going to sort of play itself out. Sadly. Right. I think a lot of it is not intentional. A lot of it is just playing itself out because people were not prepared to be in that spot.
Right. And that's an education thing, and that's a parent's responsibility. That's the school's responsibility. That's the individual's responsibility ultimately to learn about things, because look at how caffeine and energy drinks and super caffeinated alcohol drinks, and you have things like what's the other one I'm thinking about? Like different party drugs. You have all these different people being drugged, like you're, incapacitated, right? A lot of these drugs do that. And some of them, and again, doing the research for my book, it blew my mind, some of the things that I found out, how some of them would literally act within 20 minutes those things were working. And if you mix them with alcohol, they were even more potent and worked even faster. And some of the effects of some of these drugs are out of your system in like 6 or 12 hours. So if you are, thinking you might have been the victim of some sort of sexual assault and you wait, the evidence might be gone. So it's just so many different things that I think we need to educate kids, young adults, about what potential risks exist. And that's the whole reason why I wrote the book, The Ultimate Guide to College Safety, because I cover all of these things in there. I cover party drugs and alcohol and everything because there are so many risks. And, we're just talking about the risks in the physical world right now.
Sure.
You start talking about now the risks to them in the digital world, where you're worrying about, cyberbullying and cyber stalking and identity theft and, so many other things that can occur in the digital world. And they've now, really come together where you've got a threat on the digital side that can then manifest itself in the physical world. You're cyber stalked, now you can be stalked in the physical world. You're cyber bullied, now you can be bullied in the physical world. So the number of threats has just exploded exponentially all over the board.
Yeah, well, if you want to talk about safe spaces, no place is safe, not even at home. Not even like in the bathroom, because you have your cell phone with you most of the time and you're checking and you could get a nasty message right then, And so it's a constant onslaught that you've got to self-regulate.
Right. And it's
it's
a scary thing.
So, you just don't know when there will be a crime, when something could happen, when you do the wrong thing. So, Rebecca, it's just, I guess the best thing is, how can you teach kids, especially college kids, to not take those chances and make those decisions? It's hard because they're 18 to 20-year-olds, forget about it.
It is really hard. And I think you can't start 5 days before they go off to college or on the drive or expect this college orientation to take care of it. It's going to be a multi-layered solution that we obviously don't have yet, because we would not be seeing the, continuance of these issues. But I think I started talking to my kids and all of their friends very early, like in junior high, about a lot of these things. And, when my daughter she went to the University of Utah, and her boyfriend was in a fraternity, and she spent a lot of time hanging out in the frat parties and all of that. And all of her life, basically, I told her to have a buddy system, and there's no girl left behind. Right. And I beat that into their heads a little bit, and her and all of her friends, and they made fun of it. But she called me once from a party, and they were in a scary situation. But the no girl left behind, they were leaving, and they realized one of their friends wasn't with them, and they went back, and they called me and told me something was going on. So I think you've got to build relationships where people know that it's safe to talk to somebody, even if they're doing something that they're not proud of, or that you don't necessarily want them to be doing, and that they know what to do when they are in that situation. If you always having a plan in advance of knowing how far you want to go, what your limits are, and communicating that to your posse, to all keep an eye out for each other, that's one thing that's going to help. I think that colleges can also implement programs that are a consistent message that's happening to all members of the college campus. It's not just girls that get sexually assaulted. It's not just men that are the perpetrators. We have the bigger majorities of those things happening, but how to also not think it's okay to how do you control yourself if you're a man in the situation and you've also had too much and you're going with the flow, because and so I think education on both sides, things that we haven't commonly talked about,
I've had people say that to me too, that, what more people need to communicate this to the men, because everything talks about sexual assault's always, geared towards, talking about the woman and the victim and what to do and how to get out of it or whatnot. It's like, well, wait a minute, time out. What about the guys? You need to know. Somebody says no, it means no. You need to know, and you need to be able to respect, and you can't think that, you can just do whatever you want because you happen to be the captain of the football team or whatever, because I think that happens. You get some of these kids and they think that they are entitled to something, whatever that something happens to be. And that's a huge problem right there in the mindset and the upbringing of that individual. They need to be taught, no, that's not how it works. it's one thing to think about something. It's another thing to actually go in and force yourself on somebody, or to ignore someone else's refusal to, do whatever it is that you're looking to do, whether it's to go somewhere or do something or anything in between. It doesn't have to be anything of, something even of a sexual nature. It could be something else.
Mm-hmm.
But it comes, I mean, and kudos to you, Rebecca, for doing that to, your daughter from the time she was young, is letting her know, look, these are certain things that you, like you said, you beat it into their head, and you do that over time. You can't do it, like you said, on the drive to school. Like, oh, by the way, I just wanted to tell you, don't do this, this, and this. The kids can be like, where's this been my whole life? You know what I mean? Like, they're gonna be like, yeah, whatever, Dad. I'm not gonna take you seriously. They're not gonna remember it, and unfortunately, that's when they could be making mistakes. So,
well, most sexual assaults happen within like the first couple semesters, I think.
Yes, right in the beginning.
Yeah, before you know better, I guess, or before you have your defenses up. But some defenses are good to have up.
Absolutely. Now, in terms of the reporting, because some of this stems back to, like, parents might be listening to this thinking, well, okay, this is some good information, some scary information, and there is this, there's reports that come out with reporting different things that occur on campuses and towns and things like that. Could you give us a real quick kind of idea of like sort of requirements for that sort of reporting?
Sure. So as far as college campuses go, if they accept Title IV funds, which is federal financial aid, student loans, Pell Grants, and things like that, they all need to report their crime statistics and security information by October 1st of every year. And the report is based on the federal definitions of crime. So it's going to line up a lot with what the FBI Uniform Crime Reporting is looking at. So things that are reported on that report are murder, sex offenses, and it's going to break it down into like forcible, rape, non-forcible, domestic violence.
Right, burglaries, and robberies, violence, all of that. Yep.
Aggravated assault, arson, all of those things. Liquor violations, drug violations, and weapons violations. They are also required, a new requirement in the past few years has been a hate crime. So any bodily injury that was a result of a hate crime now needs to be reported as well. The thing is, what needs to be reported there is whatever the security office learns about. Whether if they don't find out about it, it doesn't get reported. And so that can be a tricky situation, because it's not the same as if you go into the police department. They're going to make a record, hopefully,
right?
What went in there, and so there's a little bit of, and there is everywhere, personal judgment that can play a role, but it's a little, it's not. It might not be the whole picture, but I think most campus security offices and campuses as a whole want to do the right thing to protect their students and to protect victims, and to be truthful in that reporting.
Unless in certain schools that you're a football player, then forget it. Then, like Florida State, I wouldn't want to be in that situation. Or something,
Yeah. There are those exceptional situations that are really bad, but I don't think that's the rule. I think most of the time parents should be able to trust that. But I definitely pay attention to the headlines too.
Absolutely. Now, outside of, a student coming to the school and, they go to orientation and they say, okay, this is what you can do, this is what you can't do. Here's our policies and procedures. Here's our college guidebook, read it, learn it. And the kids go, yeah, whatever. They throw it in a pile and they never look at it again. Right. What is it that you recommend, or that you would say to an individual student that to improve their personal safety on campus, other than getting my book? But
definitely get your book. I'm adding it to my list.
There you go.
A lot of it comes back down to common sense things, like pay attention to your surroundings. Stay alert. Don't walk around just looking at your phone or with your earbuds in and tuned out to the world. I mean, that's the most vulnerable that you could possibly be. Keep your backpack, your purse, your wallet, whatever it is, close to you. Park by lights, walk on lighted walkways. Don't take a shortcut at midnight. the back way to your dorm or your residence hall.
Right.
Like I said, use the buddy system. I love the no girl, no guy, nobody left behind rule. I think is really important. Make a plan in advance for if you get into a tricky situation, what you're going to do or when you're going to call it that, I need help or I need to get out of here. Guard your drink.
Yes.
Don't just take the first drink that's offered to you. Don't take something that's already open. And I'm sure that you explore that a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Don't drink too much. Watch what you're doing. Ask for help. Ask for a ride. Use the resources that are available on campus or from mom and dad if they're across town. Sometimes that still happens.
I think,
go ahead.
Well, just to say, alcohol is such a big part of college, and it's at the root of many of the problems in college.
It is, yeah.
And we're never going to get rid of it, right? Unless it's a dry campus, in which case kids are still going to sneak booze in somehow. You know what I mean? We did very creative things in college when I was there, but I'm not going to talk about that. But anyway, but the bottom line is where there's a will, there's a way, and college and drinking kind of go hand in hand. It's part of the culture. It's part of the upbringing. It's part of the things that you see in movies, and it's just part of, the whole experience, and that's what a lot of people expect. Mm-hmm. What they don't expect are the negative consequences that can occur as a result of drinking. And it could be something as simple as, just getting sick, or dehydrated or something like that, all the way up to alcohol poisoning, to being the victim of a sexual, offense, or falling and hurting or killing themselves because they fell out, they fell and they landed on the railroad tracks and they didn't know because it was 3 a.m. and never wake up, or they fall down a flight of stairs and break their neck because they're too boozed to walk. And so there are different things that I think so much is related to alcohol. And it's something that I think the education aspect, like people don't know you can get alcohol poisoning the very first time you drink alcohol. People are like, no way. I'm like, I thought it happened if you drank all the time. No, it's how much you drink, how fast you drink it, and you can get that alcohol poisoning the very first time you drink. And now you just, for your whole life now, you are never going to be able to enjoy a drink or two. And that's all right. Again, because of something that you did that was stupid because you weren't educated about it. And so the educational process, it's a group responsibility. It's people like yourself. It's people like me. It's people in the media like Neil. It's people that run, various organizations and sites, as well as, of course, the parents or the guardians and the schools themselves, to all do a little bit and to make it so that the students understand there are risks. Here are the risks. Here's how you mitigate the risks. If you choose not to listen to us, you do so at your own peril, but don't say we didn't tell you, because we can do everything but do it for them, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's interesting that what the impact that a consistent message can have. And if you think about cigarette smoking and how quickly it went from a booming thing to a strong decline. And obviously we've got, the vape situation and all of that, but there was a collective message that was adopted everywhere. And the reduction in smoking, which I think people never thought was going to happen, happened way more dramatically than expected. And we all just got on the same talking points in a way, and I think that alcohol is a bigger beast. It's a much bigger dragon to slay. But I think it's that, like you said, on every level, that message, not that it's evil, but used incorrectly, it is. Used incorrectly almost anything.
What about in some campuses like marijuana now? Especially legalized marijuana in certain campuses. How's that? We don't hear much talk about that, but let's talk about Colorado. Let's talk about some of these other states now. I guess Illinois now passed a recreation, so
they treat it like alcohol, right?
Yeah, they do pretty much. Anything that's going to be an under the influence sort of a situation, it's going to be under the influence of all kinds of substances, whether they're legal or not. And marijuana is kind of falling under that umbrella. But I think you bring up a really good point, Neil, that that might be less spoken about, or less in the collective conscious because it's new. And I don't know if there's what kind of stats and stuff are out there at this point yet to kind of let us know the impact. My gut feeling is it's just not going to be as impactful as addicts alcohol is.
Oh, no, you smoke too much, you're gonna fall asleep. That's what you're gonna do.
Yeah.
It's gonna be like, we're gonna go party. You're gonna eat. You're gonna have some munchies and then go to bed. And fall asleep. So, yeah, I mean, it's like anything else. It's impairing, but not to the same, not with the same results. I think.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. It's not as disinhibiting as alcohol is.
Right. So, like we're talking about the individual sort of responsibility. Sometimes we also need to hold the systems accountable that are in place there. Do you have any sort of real life examples? And we could probably, I guess, wrap up with this is of what, individuals in colleges are doing to make changes, positive changes, things that are of a systematic nature that are putting, these schools and the students that attend these schools on a better path.
Yeah, there's one organization and initiative that actually originated out of Ontario, Canada. And it is the Flip the Script program and it's got a really long name. It's EAAA, and it's empower, assess. I can't believe I can't think of it.
That's all right. We'll look it up.
Empower, assess, and you end up with act.
Okay.
And this program has actually, they've implemented it in several colleges across the U.S. and Canada, and they've done some studies to find out how effective it is. And what they have found is that the results show that women were 46% less likely to experience a rape and 63% less likely to experience an attempted rape or other form of sexual assault in the year following their completion of this program. And women that took the program also benefited from lower rates of sexual assault up to two years later. And it's that early prevention, and they do it in that vulnerable time in those first 1 to 3 months when women are in college. And I think that, it's one example. It's a program that they've made systematic and they've implemented it, and they're very specific about when it needs to happen. They don't think it's a cure-all. They, also support that there needs to be a more comprehensive and deeply invested preventative initiative campaign, that continues on, that isn't just a one-stop thing. And so I like that. That program is one that has shown proven results, and it does all the things that we're talking about. It teaches them assess your risk, acknowledge what's going on, and then act, make a decision. And it empowers the people who take that class to make those choices and go through that decision-making process. And, I also think people should take self-defense. Absolutely. Yes. I meant to say that earlier. I think that that's a very empowering thing, whether you ever have to use it or not, to know that you have it in you, that you know what to do, that you could try to protect yourself. I think that might make you more willing to run away from a situation that you shouldn't be in, or tap out when you're making out with the guy and you're like, oh great, I'm over it. This is because you can just elbow him in the nose if he gets too pushy. And so I think stuff like that, along with programs like this, are important. And every college campus that I've looked at pretty much across the board has self-defense programs for women and men, specifically designed to get out of those situations.
Yeah, it's very empowering. It builds a lot of confidence, and when you have that confidence to know that you are able to handle yourself, that diffuses a lot of situations, and it doesn't even give them a chance to get started. And so between the education aspect of understanding what can happen during college based on X, Y, and Z factors, there are certain things that you need to be aware of, and make sure that you don't get complacent. And then having some physical training in self-defense is going to go a long way towards, again, empowering, building confidence, and hopefully keeping you out of a bad situation. But if you do even get into one, hopefully it'll help you get out of it. And and that's the bottom line, is being safe, going home, living to see another day, and not having a situation occur that impacts you for the rest of your life. And we don't want that to happen to anybody. So, Rebecca, really loved having you on here. Talked about a lot of good stuff here. You get all kinds of social media stuff here. SafeWise is on Facebook, right? Just search for
Yep.
SafeWise. We didn't talk too much about the company. They do a lot of home security. Maybe you can just give us a quick overview of SafeWise. I saw the website talks a lot about home security, but they also talk about home safety and family safety and other things as well, right?
Yes. So we do home security was sort of where the company started, and we would rate and review and test all kinds of different home security systems and equipment, and we still do that for sure. But our mission has changed in the past couple of years to expand to more family and community safety. And that's where our initiatives to do the safest cities, and we've done a safe rides program where we give away free Lyft rides on holidays like New Year's and 4th of July where people want to party. So we're just adopting a much bigger role. And so security heavy and safety is sort of our future.
Awesome. So if people are interested in learning about you or SafeWise, they can go to safewise.com, right?
Yes.
And you guys also have a channel on YouTube. I guess they could search for that and follow you guys on Twitter.
Yep.
Right? It's just SafeWise at Twitter,
It's
right?
just
At SafeWise.
everywhere.
Yep. And I'm sure you're out there too. You can find you on LinkedIn. If somebody wanted to reach out or something like that, right?
Yes, I'm on LinkedIn, and you can also find me on our press page. There's a lot of ways to contact me. I cannot hide.
Good. We don't want you out there. We want you doing what you do because it's for the good of everyone. So fantastic. I greatly appreciate you being on here. So any last thoughts for our audience?
Yeah, just, preparation, start early and, take responsibility for your family, yourself, and try to live a safer life. It was really great to be here, Pete. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being on Safety Talk, Rebecca. And of course, thanks to all our listeners for tuning in. And you can always get more information and past episodes at safetytalkpodcast.com and our YouTube channel and all over the place. Safetytalkpodcast.com will be the best place to go. So until next time, stay safe, everyone.